Hey, everybody, this is Alex Lindsay sitting in for Leo. I'm here with Jim Dalrymple, Andy Anatko, and Tonya Angst, and we are going to be talking about all of Apple's releases. They are shipping: the Apple Watch, the Apple TV, the iPhone 8, all that coming up next.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for MacBreak Weekly is provided by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is MacBreak Weekly, episode 577, recorded September 26th, 2017. Princess Leia's Sectional.
MacBreak Weekly is brought to you by Rocket Mortgage. From Quicken Loans, home plays a big role in your life. That's why Quicken Loans created Rocket Mortgage. It lets you apply simply and understand the entire mortgage process fully so you can be confident you're getting the right mortgage for you. Get started at rocketmortgage.com/MacBreak. And by ZipRecruiter. Are you looking to hire a tech professional? With ZipRecruiter, you can post to 100+ job boards, including social networks, all with a single click. Screen, rate, and hire the right candidate fast. Try ZipRecruiter free at ZipRecruiter.com/twit. And by the Ring Video Doorbell. With Ring, you can see and talk to anyone at your door from anywhere in the world using your smartphone. It's like caller ID for your house. Go to ring.com/MacBreak and save up to $150 off a Ring of Security kit.
Welcome back to MacBreak Weekly. This is Leo Laporte. Oh, I'm not going to fool you. It's not Leo Laporte. This is Alex. Leo is still somewhere, parts unknown in Europe, having a good time, and I'm here trying to make sure that we continue to have a show. Fortunately, I'm not here by myself. Coming in from the Northeast, Andy Anatko. Hey, Andy.
Leo's whereabouts are unknown only to God and Instagram.
Exactly.
And viewing his Instagram we can say that he's gone to a far, far better place if his pictures are to be believed.
And coming in from Silicon Valley, Jim Dalrymple. Hey, Jim.
How you doing, Alex?
Hey, good to have you here. I think we were talking about it before the show. This is the first time that Jim and I have actually been on the same show. Usually when I'm somewhere else, then Jim's here, but we've never actually been on the same show at the same time. So we're excited.
This is an exciting day.
And speaking of that, I haven't been on the same show with Tonya Angst either. Hi, Tonya.
Hi, it's great to be here. Coming in from a very hot day in upstate New York, from Ithaca, New York. Yep.
It seems like it's hot everywhere. I think that this is, for some reason I remember it being cooler. Anyway, so we'll get into that. That's a whole other show. So anyway, we've got a lot of news. So Leo really actually missed one. He always complains about not having a lot of news, but today we actually have a lot of things because products are now in the wild. The first being macOS High Sierra. Has anyone installed High Sierra on their computers?
I've been using the betas. I think it's always worked well for me. I didn't install the first beta, but I installed. I usually wait for the first 2 or 3, and it's worked great for me. Last week, the GM came out for developers. I installed that. It's been great.
What do you think is the thing that is going to be the Andy? What do you think is the thing that's going to make this stand out the most for folks? Is there really anything, or most of this is really kind of back office, making everything run just a little smoother?
Well, absolutely the new file system, because in a year from now, it will mean that everything works better. A year from now, it means that we'll see a whole bunch of new features in the operating system proper that will give practical, tangible events, whether you're looking for files, organizing files, or backing files up, or just realizing, or just not realizing that the catastrophic hyper meltdown of all your data that would have happened if you were still using Apple's 1983 derived operating file system has been averted. But it's also really important today because it's the reason why you should be a little bit wary of installing it if you don't really need it. I myself don't see any user-facing features for myself as a user that make it something that I must install today. And the fact that you have a brand new file system that has been pretty poorly documented to developers because remember that Apple is building this all the time while it's trying to explain to developers, here's how you should support the new Apple file system. There's going to be a lot of stuff that isn't going to be, problems that aren't going to be discovered until you do literally have millions and millions of people using it, as opposed to tens of thousands of people using it. You also have the problem where everybody who has an SSD, which now means pretty much every laptop user, and even probably more desktop users than not, maybe, you don't have the option of not installing it. It is a non-negotiable option, default for people using SSDs. So normally I would be saying that if there is like a full-on integer +1 release of an operating system, hold off for at least a month just to see, just to make sure that all your apps are working fine with it, just to make sure there are no barn-burning problems with it. This is one where I would extend that by a couple of months. It's not just day-to-day stuff. I'm also kind of concerned about what happens when, like, my regular backup utility gets introduced to this. What happens when I try to do a full restore for the first time? So there's a lot more that I need to learn as a user before I'm going to trust it.
Yeah, I know that I'm oftentimes I wait for one whole cycle. So I get the last version a couple weeks before the new version comes out. But in this case, on my home computer, I went ahead and updated it, and so far everything's working well. But Tonya, what's your experience so far with the upgrade?
Well, I take a 3-computer approach to upgrades. So I have a lovely iMac on my desk with 2 huge monitors, and that is usually 1 or 2 operating systems behind. Mm-hmm. I then have 2 laptops. One of them is like the sacrificial victim. It takes all updates. It just, everything, something new comes out, great. Click the button, it's on, see what happens. I don't really try to do work on it because it's always, I'm always like, okay, I need to know exactly what the default is. So I wipe the whole thing and, install the default operating system, and then none of my stuff is on it. So it's just the sacrificial victim. And then I have another laptop where I try to keep it pretty up to date and actually do work on it too. So I've actually been running High Sierra on both of my laptops for a month or 2 now, and it's been completely fine for me. But I have this thing. There's some people who always break stuff. Maybe some of you guys are the people who always break stuff. I'm the person who stuff always works for. This is because a long time ago, I actually worked for Microsoft in product support. This is like 20 years ago. And my job was to make Microsoft Word work correctly. And so it's like,
and once you got good at that, you could make anything work correctly.
It's like I subconsciously just avoided the problems. Whereas I had a really good buddy over in the testing department, like he could basically look at a computer and break Microsoft Word.
Well, and I think a lot of it has to do with being methodical about how you operate. I know I had this, we were just doing a bunch of live streams in Germany last week. And the funny thing about it is that we, the operator that I had handed off to was suddenly having a bunch of issues that I hadn't seen before. And I was like, well, let's do it exactly the way I do it. I don't know why.
Exactly.
I don't know why that works. I just know that I'm very superstitious. Like, oh, you never do this, and you never touch this button, and you never do this, and you never I have this whole set of rules that for some reason make it run better, but I don't know exactly why. And it shouldn't.
Right. And it's subconscious for me. I mean, the thing with High Sierra is people who like to talk about Mac operating systems, which I'm sure is everyone on this chat right now. We like to talk about APFS, and we like to talk about all the little things it does and what everything stands for and everything. If we were at an old time, Apple user group meeting, we could spend 2 hours talking about this stuff, right? But your average, Apple computer owner is just going to install High Sierra and be like, hey, nothing's changed at all. But that is what it is for them. Obviously, there's a lot of great stuff coming. But to give you an idea, for anyone listening to this who hasn't really been working with High Sierra or read very much about it yet, the Tidbit staff here on our internal Slack board spent some time this morning talking about this infinitesimal difference we discovered, which we were really excited about because it's something different. And our infinitesimal difference that we discovered this morning is that on a Sierra computer, in a default Finder window, there's this thing called All My Files, which you can click, and then it shows you, probably, if you're lucky, all your files. But that is called something different in High Sierra, we discovered today. It's called, I believe, Recents.
What's it called?
So that's recents.
Oh, recents. Interesting.
Yeah. So like that is so trivial. And yet it's like, it actually took brain space from us all this morning because it was just something new to talk about. So,
so it doesn't really affect it. It's just something new there.
It's this tiny difference, and we were all like, "Hey, we didn't notice." No, everyone was surprised because none of us on the crew had noticed that before. So we were excited. I think that's the level of tininess of the changes that normal end users are going to notice.
Now, of course, with this, there is a report that there is a what sounds like a pretty nasty vulnerability, which is the third-party apps access to plain text keychain data. And I don't know if you guys have looked into it. Jim, have you? Does this seem like a real threat?
Well, it's not. From what I understand, I took a quick look at it this morning. From what I understand, it's not only on High Sierra.
Right.
So that shouldn't be a reason to not upgrade to High Sierra. But I think all of these threats you have to watch out for. I mean, it would be silly to just ignore any kind of a threat. But the fact is, the actual vulnerability to make this happen hasn't been released. And the guy that figured it out won't release how to do it until after Apple fixes it.
Right. So he's taken one step, which is to publicly say, hey, there's a problem here, but without, and I think a fairly responsible step of, I'm going to tell you that it's all there. And my guess is he probably privately said something a little while ago and no one did anything about it. So the next step is to publish it and say.
And that's the way it goes, yeah.
Yeah, and so I think that's helping to kind of move that forward. Now, it does look like you do, or it doesn't look like you need to give it admin access to have it be able to do this according to the developer.
Right.
Yeah. That's right.
Andy, is this something people can avoid? Is it something we should avoid? We haven't seen it in the wild, correct?
Right. It's due diligence, and it's actually a really good sign of the integrity of this developer that he's pointed it out, because one of the problems with security problems is that they're so damn valuable to everybody. It is a commodity. You've basically discovered gold in your backyard. And actually, maybe the better thing is that imagine that you found like a big hoard of like Roman gold coins in your backyard, and you know that technically, and you're British, and technically this belongs to Britain, and you're supposed to like report it, and they'll put it in the British Museum, or you have the ability to simply melt it down and basically pour it into muffin tins, and then say, "Oh, my Uncle Horace died, and he was an eccentric, and we found this in the walls of his house," because. Remember that this is part of these security problems are part of inventory. There are people who are bad people, but there are also governments. There are investigative agencies that have this big stockpile of here's how you can get into this Mac, here's how you can get into this phone, and so on the open market you could sell a vulnerability like that. I mean, a vulnerability that gives you access to the entire keychain, that's got to be worth mid six figures easily. There have been people writing about this over the summer that Apple and other companies provide huge bounties for discovering bugs like this, but they're not offering enough money to get people who are in this business to tell them that no, we're going to tell you to for $150,000 do not have this tool that you don't know that anybody else has. Do not have the ability as a consultant to charge $200,000 a crack to be able to get into any phone that you want. Or if it's a lower level hack, the problem of, remember that stage one is to simply get into the device. So if you have a hack that says I get to basically get into the front door of this device, that's the most valuable thing of them all. So to answer your question, no, you shouldn't be worried about this. If you were really for some reason that I can't really understand, excited to get into High Sierra immediately, it wouldn't really. Well, and again,
the bug is old. It's not. It's just that it hasn't been fixed in High Sierra. The bug is still has. It sounds like it's been in the wild for a while. It's not. It's just someone hasn't. But High Sierra doesn't fix it.
The big problem is that, I mean, I even had to go, while you were talking, I had to go back to apple.com just to see, is there something about High Sierra that I have forgotten about? that is amazing, and really even so even on Apple's page, I mean, I've got it in front of me right now. It says number one, it tells you about, hey, we've got this new file system, which again is kind of an important but an esoteric feature. And then second marquee feature that we want everybody to know about, so they get really excited about it. We have a new video file standard called HEVC. Okay. Well, the third one, there's going to be Metal 2 of high speed. Okay, well, you're not. You get, and then you scroll down and you get into, well, the photo app has more features and the mail app has more features, and you're not talking about. It really doesn't seem like stuff that we're seeing like in iOS, in the new iOS, which totally transforms how you use your iPad. But,
in a lot of ways, though, this is like Snow Leopard, right? I mean, this is the Snow Leopard update, which in my book is one of the most important updates that they had before, which is that, there was a bunch of things in Leopard that were messy, and we have to, I will say that both on the new iOS 11, which we'll get to, and with the macOS, there's a lot in the operating system that has been pretty messy.
And also a lot of these problems are really, really hard to fix. I think it was OS 9. Was it? It was a few years ago, where they just wanted, for years and years and years, they wanted to fix the behavior of, you want to eject a volume, but there's a file in use somewhere, and it's going to prevent it from unlocking. The most annoying thing in the world. And two Apple engineers were excitedly, they really wanted to know how hard it was for them to fix that problem, and how much attention, how much time it took, to how many things. It's sometimes changing a feature is like changing the rug in your living room. It's like you think, oh well, you just changed a red rug into a red and blue rug. Yeah, but you don't understand that we had to take every piece of furniture out of that room and find a place to put that furniture while we were pulling up the old rug. So it can be deceptive. But I do wish that every and also creating a brand new file system, that in itself, is like changing the mix of gases in the atmosphere in Earth. It changes. It affects everything. Now, however, I wish there were a couple of things that were really user forward, that makes the entire experience that much more innovative, that much more interesting, that much easier. I don't see it.
I think they did, and I think that they've been doing this for the last several versions of iOS and macOS, and that's the integration between the two. That to me is where the genius of macOS and iOS is right now. I know when I sit down at my iPad that a file that I've been working on my Mac is there. I don't need to email it to myself. I don't need to do anything to myself. Everything is synced. That's the way I like. I
have to admit, just with notes, I know that it syncs with everything, but I find it this fascinating thing that I keep a bunch of thoughts in notes. I've kind of gotten used to using it because it's just immediately everywhere, and I know it was just a very light app that I can draw in, and I can do whatever I want in, and it just shows up on all the platforms so quickly that, whatever phone I'm on, or my iPad, or my computer, and I can just keep on, and I don't do anything serious on it, but I do find that the tighter that integration works, and I have to admit I was very slow coming to the AirDrop. But now I'm just totally addicted.
Well, it works a lot better now. It seems like for a long time you'd try AirDrop and it just would hardly work at all.
You couldn't find anything.
Nobody could figure out why, and you'd go through and you'd make sure your Bluetooth and your Wi-Fi and all that was adjusted right, and it still wouldn't work at all. So, but then it kind of started working some of the time, and now it's actually working most of the time. So I'm even moving like screenshots sometimes from computer to computer with it because it's very efficient. That said, it was very efficient for a couple of weeks, but the last 2 or 3 days, it kind of stopped working. So they're getting there.
Yeah, absolutely. And as Tara Kay says in the forums, the updates to Notes really move it closer to some of the capabilities of Evernote, which is a good thing, which I kind of feel in some ways it is kind of this internal, Evernote process. Now, moving on. Oh, well, and the one thing I will say is that HEVC is really important. I know that it's brand new for people who aren't paying a lot of attention to it. We've been talking about HEVC within my community for about 5 years, of wondering when it was going to get to a point where it was, because it's so much more efficient. What really held it up was the licensing around it. So this is all the MPEG licenses, and both a lot of the large CDN platforms like YouTube didn't want to use it because of the I think, but I don't know for sure, but because of potential licensing issues, and they're using not that. so BP9 is really where they've gone, which is we'll talk about a little bit here coming up. But the I think that HEVC is going to be a huge as we look at the larger file formats. As we really start moving to 4K and being able to watch 4K. The problem with 4K is, of course, being able to actually see it. Because it cuts it's so much more efficient. When you get to 4K, you just can't start sending people the same quality per bit at H.264 and still be able to make that work. So we'll see whether that makes a big difference. I do believe there's some support. Does anyone know about the support for VR? I believe that there's some additional support for VR, or just some of the Metal 2 is going to make that more available.
Yeah, they're essentially they're using that as a way to promote the new iMac, the next iMac. They're essentially saying that support for Steam VR, the Vive HR, Final Cut, Epic Unreal, Unity Editor. Essentially, they're on this page. They're just talking about how the tools that you're using to create content are now going to be enhanced compatibility. Partly, I imagine, through making sure that all this stuff interfaces directly through Metal. Well, and it's been way behind. I mean, Apple has been way behind in this area, and fortunately, they're coming back up with a vengeance. But also, they're also moving some of the searches away. Now, they're moving from Bing to Google. How did they start in Bing? Was this just an Apple-Google thing for when it started? Jim, do you know what the story was on how Apple began with the Bing search engine?
I don't know what the backstory was of all that, but clearly it was something to take a shot at Google and bring Bing in there. I'm glad they're moving back to Google, to be honest. That's what I think 99% of us use. I use Google search if I need to search for something. So, I'm happy to see it, but that means a lot of money for Google too.
It means a lot of money for Apple too. I think that they're just for the iOS support. It is reported, and this is from. I think this was on CNBC, $3 billion a year just to make sure that it's the default for your iOS app. So it's not an insignificant amount of money.
Yeah. I don't have inside information either, but I imagine that Bing made them a better offer, whether it was monetary or whether it was just simply here is the privacy protections that we're going to extend to people who do searches in this mode through Bing that Google is not prepared to offer you. I don't think that Apple would zing Google just to zing Google. I think there would either be an immediate reason, again, like money, or it allows them to do features they couldn't do otherwise, or they just simply think that they like to diversify and make sure that they don't have all of their search eggs in one basket. But yeah, was it John Oliver last week or the week before made the joke about how Bing was claiming that they have about their search integrity, saying the new slogan is Bing, America's favorite way to Google something. So yeah, that's not exactly that's not exactly a value add. God bless them, but no.
I can still remember I've been pretty good at calling things in the distance, but I can still remember when Google came out, and I was like, why would anyone try to compete with Yahoo? It was like It was like it's got a whole page, and it's just a simple page with a search. I don't understand. I don't know how this is actually gonna turn out for them. I mean, this is stupid. And
why would I want to search for something? I can go to Yahoo. There's a page that has every single web page about the Red Sox, all organized and rated.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I didn't quite figure that one out.
I think we're all showing our age now.
Yeah. I think Google was just feeling lucky.
Right. Yeah, no, absolutely. It does look like Apple's HomeKit is starting to sink in with some of the streamlines and some of the reduction of overhead that they have added. This is according to The Verge. That the HomeKit devices are suddenly booming. The question really is this a result of them reducing some of the restrictions, or is it just that this is how long it takes for these kinds of products to get developed? Andy, what's your opinion?
I think that there are a lot of variables in this, and I think that one of the largest ones is just simply the popularity of Amazon Alexa and Google Home. The problem, I think, that with most home automation stuff has been you're trying to sell someone on the idea of you give somebody that big demo, like if you don't have Alexa, you give someone the big demo about how, look, and all I have to do is take out my phone and use fingerprint ID to unlock it, and then launch this app, and then by navigate to that button, then have this, and then someone just look at you and nod, say, or you could just reach up and turn it on like that. You really have to have people who understand how good this can be, what the potential is, and when you have the ability to say, "Hey, Alyosha, turn off the lights in the bedroom," and suddenly you're in bed and there are no lights on, that's what get people. So it's not the sort of thing where it was ever going to be a revolution like the iPad or the iPhone. It was going to be the slow grinding of hard boards. It was going to be little by little, more and more people find themselves in a position where HomeKit is relevant to them. And toward that end, the fact that Apple has made the pain of entry for developers so much less than before, you really need to get to the developers, oh, what the hell, let's do that factor, where they're not going to have to spend several months, they're not going to have to spend thousands of dollars of their own money to just simply get the ability to do this stuff. Give people the ability to simply say, hey, wouldn't it be cool if my app did this? Or wouldn't it be cool if my always on, always connected toaster was able to talk to HomeKit, and just let them do it. And that's how the awesome happens.
Now, Jim, in a fragmented market, does this look like the smartwatch environment where Apple kind of came into a fragmented market, started slow, and now has kind of a dominant position with iWatch? Do we think that HomeKit has the chance of kind of doing the same thing into that highly fragmented market?
When I look at home automation and HomeKit, I'm kind of like the person that Andy was just talking about. I see the potential of HomeKit, but if all I have in HomeKit is one light bulb, then I'm not going to bother with that. I can go out and buy a light bulb now and hook it up to my phone, but I want to be able to, when it hits its potential, that's when I'll go in and say, okay, redo my home so that it knows when I walk into this room and I say, do this, it's going to lower the shades and it's going to turn on the TV and it's going to, my Apple TV is going to come on and the lights are going to dim and everything happens because I'm there. That's the potential. And that's where I'll jump in right about there.
Well,
I'm not going to jump in beforehand. Yeah, I just don't see the point.
Go ahead, Tonya.
I was going to say I'd been thinking about HomeKit a lot recently, and also thinking about why it was that in my own home there is not very much in the way of HomeKit devices, although I think there will be soon. And I think as the devices have gotten a little better over the last couple of years, and as they've gotten cheaper, people have also started to get to the point where they might be replacing something that a HomeKit thingy could be the replacement for. So if your house already has, 25 light bulbs that you bought in the last 5 years, you don't need another light bulb. If your lawn sprinkler already has one of those manual gizmos where you can tell it to sprinkle for 25 minutes and then stop, you don't need a hose stopper. If you already have your furnace installed with a built-in, wired-in furnace or thermostat, you don't need a thermostat. There's like all this stuff. If you already have it, it's too expensive to replace it just because it's cool. But as stuff starts to wear out,
speak for yourself there. I'm very capable of replacing things just because it's cool.
Here. But as stuff starts to wear out, or like, my gosh, if I was having a new home built right now, or if I was 22 years old and just getting started with acquiring stuff, now is a great time because the stuff is more affordable. It's not quite the first ever products in some cases. So I think it just really is going to take a period of time for people to reach a point in their lives with their purchasing decisions where it makes sense to get your first HomeKit thing, and then it makes sense to sort of do a room, or you're redoing your lighting. But I do think for your typical consumer, it's just too expensive and sort of too fussy, or almost like too weird, like with a HomeKit door lock. It's like, well, yeah, and if it breaks, then what, right? So it's just going to take a little more time, but I think it will continue to evolve. In like 5 years from now, we'll have this conversation. Everyone in the room will be like, "Oh yeah, I've got a whole bunch of that stuff."
I mean, I think that one of the things for me is that the it has to just get to a point where it just works. You know, kind of the Apple way of doing things where, you know, I got the Philips early on, and I have a lot of Philips bulbs. In my office, I kind of replaced everything with them so that I could kind of play with it, and I'd set it all up, and I made the mistake of, I had this great idea that I would be able to change the ambient light based on the mean value of the TV, which is, I almost gave myself an epileptic fit by connecting those two together. You watch Raiders of the Lost Ark, and the whole room is like, you know, and it didn't go well. So anyway, but just getting them to work, you know, you have a little hub, and you got to plug it in, then you got to get an app, and then you got to, and you know, I can see where you're going to get to a point where your phone already has whatever it needs. When I get to a point where I buy the bulb, but it's not significantly more expensive than a regular LED bulb, and I screw it in, and immediately my phone, you know, sees it, and it's just part of that environment. I think that becomes one of those things that becomes very hard to compete with, you know, in other, you know, whether it's, you know, a whole different platform and so on and so forth. As far as the, you know, like the thermostat is a good example of something that, you know, I put in a Nest, and then of course moved, and I haven't replaced it yet in the new house, and keep on looking at it because it's so funny how badly how bad thermostats are. The thermostat controls. It's kind of an amazing confusion of interfaces and what's on schedule and what's held and whatever. And being able to just do that on my phone is something that I kind of miss, and we'll probably go back to. But anyway,
I also think with HomeKit, one thing to keep in mind is it's not all about like fun sort of things or changing the environment because you're in it, that there are really practical things like monitoring the temperature in your freezer or your refrigerator, or you know, monitoring whether a door is open or closed when it matters. So there are really, I think there are important practical uses that may appeal more to budget conscious people, or may be really where the footholds start really being taken into people's homes, where those homes where people would otherwise say, you know, that's frivolous, that's ridiculous.
Well, and I think I definitely, you know, I've somehow ended up with a lot of doors in the house that I have now, and the thing is that trying to remember which ones. No, I mean, like the exterior doors. There's all these exterior doors. I don't know why there's so many of them, but anyway, so. But it's this thing to like walk around and remember which ones to click off and all this stuff. It's not a very big house. It just has a lot of doors, you know. And I definitely thought about the fact that I just want to be able to say, you know, good night house, you know, like you know, kind of like good night friends, good night moon, good night house, and have it lock all the doors, turn on the alarm, and turn on and off all the lights that I want to have turned on and off, you know, and to get back to what Jim was talking about is you just kind of want that to just kind of go away and be able to say, I'm going to give you a command, and when I give you that command, I just need you to do all these things at one time, and you know, and kind of set it to that, you know, that state. And I think that, but I do think that we're not very far from that. I think that it definitely feels like that.
Well,
anyway,
the industry.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, you're going to go quickly. Also, the industry is helping us out by giving us sort of smart home features free with a lot of the stuff that we're buying. We're not interested in that feature, but it comes with the fridge or comes with this new heating system. Right. Just like DLNA, you don't know that this audio receiver you have has DLNA. You never use it until 2 years later. You launch this app that uses it. Oh wait, why is like, oh wow, I can actually stream through this device everywhere. So it'll catch up with us. And I find it amazing how my kids just completely. My kid, you know, my 8 and 9 year old kids will immediately, like, they talk to Alessios, we'll call, all the time. Like, just there's just constant questions of everything from what time is it, how hot is it, or is it, you know, like they're just kind of used to it. If for some reason they can't figure out why the TV isn't working, we have like one of those harmonies that works most of the time, but not all the time. You'll just see them over there. They'll just be looking at the little, you know, show and just like watching this little screen. And they doesn't, you know, 70-inch screen or 10-inch screen doesn't matter to them. But anyway, we've got an iPhone shipping, iPhone 8. We're going to see how well it's shipping, Apple TVs and so on and so forth. That's all coming up. But I think that Leo has some important words that he'd like to share with us.
If I could just interrupt for a moment to talk about our sponsor, shall I? Quicken Loans, you know them. Best mortgage lender in the country. I wish I had gone with them the last time I bought a house. I went with the other guy, the big bank, and it took them a month or more, and they kept asking. It was kind of weird. They kept asking for more stuff. We had to go through and find papers, fax it. It took forever. We got to the point where the guy was selling us our house said, "What's going on, guys? I'm going to have to sell it to somebody else." We almost lost the house. I'm glad we didn't. We love it. We've been living there for 4 years. And I could tell you, if we refi or we're going to buy a new house, we're going to Quicken Loans because they've got a product for us geeks called Rocket Mortgage. That's awesome. It's an entirely online mortgage approval process. There is no going anywhere. You can do it from your phone. You can do it from your couch. You can do it from an open house. You don't even have to go into the attic to find papers, bank statements or pay stubs. It's all in the app because Quicken Loans knows everybody. They've got trusted partners all over finance. All you have to do is say, here's who I am. I give you permission to get my bank statements or whatever, and they'll do it. There's no getting up in the attic and faxing stuff to them. In fact, because it's all online, it's all computerized, this takes not months, not weeks, not days even, not hours, not even minutes. Yes, literally, you could do it in an open house and be approved for a loan before you leave with Rocket Mortgage from Quicken Loans. Based on your income, your assets, your credit, they can analyze all the home loan options for which you qualify, find the one that's just right for you, that fits your needs. It's completely transparent. You'll know every step of the way what's going on. You will understand everything that's going on. It's simple, and you'll have the confidence you're mortgaging with the right people with the right loan. It's really great. I can tell you it's how we're going to do it next time. And you should do it that way. Go to rocketmortgage.com/MacBreak. Rocketmortgage.com/MacBreak. If you're not buying a house today, don't worry about it. Just bookmark it so you'll have it for next time. Rocketmortgage.com/MacBreak. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states. And MLSConsumerAccess.org, number 3030. Rocket Mortgage. They're from Quicken Loans, so you know they're good. Rocketmortgage.com/MacBreak. Now back to the show.
So the iPhone is now shipping. Now people are able to actually get a hold of them. And it seems, Andy, like it's relatively easy compared to a lot of the other announcements. It's relatively easy to get to the iPhone 8.
Yeah, I mean, I checked out the store on launch day, and I would have had to wait all the way until today to receive them. So it looks like a lot of naysayers are jumping to, oh, look, not many people are very interested in the iPhone 8, and that remains to be seen. But I prefer to think of it as, for the first time in a long time, if you want an iPhone, you don't have to wait a crazy, stupid amount of time to get it. So, yeah.
Well, and I think that a lot of us saw this. I think that the interesting thing is that, and Jim, what do you think of the fact that a lot of people are just waiting for the 10?
Well, I think that there's a couple of different things going on here. One is that the actual design of the iPhone 8 is almost the same as the iPhone 7. So there was none of that process of having to retool to do a lot of the exterior work. So they can ship them a lot faster. We don't know what the pre-orders were. So pre-orders could have been very good, and they just shipped them all out. The people that wanted them got them. And then there's the iPhone 10. That's certainly part of this too. I think a lot of people are waiting for the 10.
Yeah, absolutely. Tonya, do you think that the 10 is for everyone, or do you think that there is a large group of people that the 8 is going to be enough? 8 is enough.
Oh, certainly. There's a large group of people who even the iPhone 7 on that phone, the price is lower now. So there's a lot of people who that's going to be great for. I think that people who are going to wait in line at an Apple store are much more the iPhone 10 crowd. And so I think that may be why it looks lackluster if you're just looking at crowd volume at the Apple stores on launch day.
Yeah, and I think that it is it's interesting how complicated. I've been trying to break down the which phone to buy. If you look at, for the average consumer, it used to be, well, there's the old one and then there's the new one. And that's really all we have now. And it seems that Apple has kind of really broken up this. If you want a small, very inexpensive one, you've got the SE. If you still want a headset, you've got the 6 or the 6S. If you just want something a little less expensive and you're willing to stay back, you still have the 7, which is the older one. Then you have the 8. And then it just seems, and again, does anyone feel like the product line has gotten too complicated, or does each serve a specific need that is important?
I think it's going to be a little bit hard for people to. It is complicated is maybe the wrong word. I think that I suspect that Apple really is going to be taking a good hard look at what people buy over the next year to decide where the cuts need to be made. I wonder if they just looked at the numbers and said, look, we've got the manufacturing costs down so far that we've already got the tooling, we've already got the assembly lines all set up. We can basically support this entire line for another year while we figure out, do we need to, is there really a market for a really good $500 iPhone, or is that just not something that iPhone people care about? It's the most interesting part is the keeping both the 6 and the 7 in the line at the same time, because those are so close to each other.
Well,
there's a
huge gap. There's a huge gap between the two, and one has a headphone jack and the other one doesn't. I mean, I think that's the reason that you keep the 6 is that you want a larger phone and a headphone jack.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's not the reason why you would do it last year. I mean, it seems odd to me, particularly a company that has they were so clear on the deleting the headphone jack last year that they did this really kind of embarrassing spiel about how, do you know that copper has been an element for over 2,000 years? We're using a material that's 2,000 years to listen to our music. And you're just sitting there like, I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to stop typing, and the audience just look up and say, did he really say this bunch of garbage that I thought he said? That's how big they were invested in. And they also have the much less expensive iPhones in the lineup to cover that. I think that there's more to it than that. I really think that there's an element of, we don't know how best to price these things. I think that the fact they've got so many models out there, particularly at such comfortable price rates, indicates how a level of awareness that the ability to buy a really superb Android phone for $400 and $500, it might not necessarily be damaging iPhone sales, but it's interesting enough to the people who are following these numbers inside Apple that they want to see, is it really important for us worldwide to make sure that there is a really low entry point for the iPhone without going so far as to create something that is not, we couldn't happily call an iPhone.
Right, and I will admit that I lost it recently, but I had an SE, and I loved it. I loved having a little phone, like if I'm going to go somewhere. Although I think that my watch hopefully will take over that holding.
That's the littlest iPhone of all.
Right, right. Has anyone gotten the new watch?
You could swallow it at Border Patrol if you needed.
Yeah,
to.
Exactly.
my watch is on order. Hasn't come yet.
And
I got a watch after the Avanda watch and an iPhone 8 and 8 Plus that I've been testing.
And what do you think of the watch?
I love the watch. So I'm a huge fan of the watch. I mean, it's really helped me over the past couple of years lose weight and just kind of understand what I do on a daily basis as far as exercise and stuff goes. But there's always that component of, well, if I go out, I can listen to music because you can sync playlists onto your watch, but I still can't get a phone call, or I can't really keep in touch. But now you can, and that was a pretty big thing, because like most tech people anyway, if we're away from our phone, if I forget my phone at home, I will drive a long way to go back and get it. But when I was testing out the watch, I purposely left my phone at home and drove away. And it was hard. It was really hard to do because, oh my God, I wonder if my phone's okay. It's at home. What if somebody called? Okay, I have my watch with me. It can now take phone calls without my phone being there. And I made some calls. I received some calls.
And you were using your AirPods for that?
So I tried a couple of different things. I wanted to go to, I didn't want to stand in an isolated area. So I went to San Francisco with my father, who was visiting. And we went to the financial district, but not around Market Street, where all the horns are blazing and everything. Right. It was down off the Embarcadero. And so it's still a busy area, but, not as busy as that whole downtown mess. And I made a phone call to him, and I had my phone up around my chest. And he said, I can hear you perfectly. It's coming in just fine. And when we get out of the car, he walked one way, I walked another. About 2 minutes later, we started calling each other. And, it is amazing that the noise reduction that goes into any of these phones, but also to the watch, has been kind of astounding. So after that call, while I was on the call, I said, okay, I'm going to start walking. So I put my arm down by my side and I walked as I normally would. He was still on the call. And he said, I can still hear you. He said, I hear a little bit of wind noise. And I assumed that's when my arm was swinging because I was walking. But my arm was down by my side. He said, I can still hear you. Right. I had a bit more trouble hearing him because my arm was down by my side, but I still could. And then I hung up. I put in my AirPods and connected those. And when I called him, he said, oh, now the sound is just amazing. That's great. So, and that makes sense. Obviously, you have the AirPods with 4 microphones right beside your face.
Yeah, I had to admit last week on Twitter that I like the AirPods. Okay, you know, they're like I put them off for a long time. I even bought them and had them sit in my bag. I'm like rah, 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 and I decided to go ahead and play with them, and they actually work. They work really well. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, they do. They do.
I'm completely with you. I got a pair just about 2 weeks ago. Had held off for a long time, and they're pretty good. They pair really easily. I can run with them in. They're more comfortable than I thought they would be. It's pretty good.
Yeah, I haven't given up completely on my wired ones, but I'm spending more time on my AirPods.
I think it's different for different people, and I've said this before. If I'm going to sit down and seriously listen to some music, I'll use my Futuresonics, my in-ear monitors. There is nothing better than those. That's the premier thing to use if you're going to listen to music. But for convenience, if I'm just taking a break and I want to take a 5-minute walk around, or I'm getting a phone call, I'll just pop in the AirPods, and it's quick and easy. They turn on, I can tap them, and music starts playing, and then I'm done, and I pop them back in the case and put them in my pocket. Yeah. But I always have them with me. They're always in my pocket.
Yeah, that's really my best feature for it too. And keep in mind the highest compliment I can pay this thing is that my AirPods are my favorite pair of earphones, and I'm an Android phone user, so I don't get the full benefit of it from it. But yeah, I mean, it's just the ability to, and really, it really is about just the ability to have this tiny little thing that I can just slip in my pocket. Something that's not as easy as even the wired headphones aren't as easy to simply keep in my pocket all the time. Yep. It's like every morning I get dressed, I take out my wallet, I take out my keys, I take out my phone, and I take out my AirPods and put them in my pocket, so that even if I don't listen to them for like 3 or 4 days, they're actually going to be there. So yeah, this is probably, if there are 5, let's even say if there have been 5 perfect Apple designs in the history of the company, I think this would be one of them. It's
amazing the fit and finish of that entire experience. Like, I am just like kind of, that I think that they do epitomize Apple's attention to detail. The way that the case closes, the way that they snap back into place, like all the little things take away all the little stresses about having headphones. I think that in a way that you don't see in a lot of other, I mean, I have a lot of Bluetooth headsets that I've tried, which is why I was so like, oh, another wireless something or other that isn't going to work. And I mean, because I have almost all of them, and I've spent hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars on these, trying to figure out one that will work, because I really want it to be not dealing with wires and everything else. I just couldn't find something that actually that I thought was acceptable. And these are the first ones that I've definitely felt like it works. Yeah. Has anyone used the Beats version with the W1 chip?
No, I like good sound.
Yeah, I've
You like what? You like good sound, yeah.
I like good sound, yeah. That's not Beats.
Yeah. Okay, we're gonna move on from there. Yeah. Now, some people are having trouble with the watch. as far as the way the LTE works and the Wi-Fi? Do we think that is something that's widespread across all of them, or is it something that is specific to a certain number of them in certain situations?
So here's the problem with this. People have said that this is an LTE bug,
right?
And it's not an LTE bug. It connects to the LTE network just fine. The problem is with Wi-Fi. Now, what the watch will do when you have an iPhone 8, it will first, the watch will connect to your iPhone. If your iPhone is not around, it will look for an authorized network, a Wi-Fi network that it can connect to and do voice calls over IP. That's the next thing. After, if it can't connect to a known Wi-Fi network, it will then connect to a cellular network. So those are the three steps that it makes. Where it's running into a problem is that on your iPhone, if you've gone to Starbucks or McDonald's or one of these places and connected to their Wi-Fi network and come up with that interstitial page where it says, do you agree and accept the terms? And you have to click a button on your phone, then you can surf the web. On your watch, you don't get that page. So your watch is getting stuck on that interstitial page where you don't actually have access to the internet.
Right.
But it won't move on. So that's where the problem is. Is it a bad problem? Yeah, Apple should have known that and they should have fixed it. Now, I never had that issue when I was reviewing and testing my watch because I don't join those networks. So right. I didn't have Starbucks in my my phone or my watch, so it never tried to join that free Wi-Fi network because it's so insecure. I never joined the McDonald's network or any of the other ones. The only networks that I had in my watch were networks that I knew and that were authenticated. So my watch worked fine. So people were coming up with this problem on when the reviews posted, and I thought, I never saw that. I don't know what these people are talking about. And people were asking me because I posted my review and said, yeah, it worked great. And they said, well, what about this problem? And then when it finally came out, I said, okay, well, that's why, because I don't join those networks.
Well, and I have to admit that I think this is a problem for many operating systems, but also a problem on the iOS and macOS, is this idea I'm going to jump onto I feel like it's a jump onto a Wi-Fi, and if I can't get to the internet in, literally 30 seconds or a minute, I'm just going to get off of it. Like, I'm going to turn that thing off again, because it is a constant problem for me is that I do use some of the insecure networks like the United Lounge or United Wi-Fi on the plane, or all of these things. And what happens is my devices jump right on. They're like, hello, and they get on, and then they hang on there, and I don't have any internet. And so then I have to turn off Wi-Fi and everything else, like just until I want to use it. So I think that is one of the things that I think I wish Apple was smarter about, is that I'm going to get on, if I can't ping something quickly, I'm going to get off that Wi-Fi network because it's got something that's stopping me from getting. Does that seem like it makes sense, or is it more complicated than that?
Yeah.
Well, the Apple Watch has to know from now on that, okay, this page, this network requires an interstitial page. Skip it and go to LTE. Once they figure out how to do that,
right,
then it's going to be fine.
Yep. And you were going to say, Tonya?
Well, I was just going to say, I believe Apple will be able to fix this on their end, and I'm sure they're working on it. But something that I think people should just think about before they get on the Starbucks network or whatever it is if you can get your bandwidth situation under control, just tether from your iPhone. That way you're going over the cellular network, and it is going to be a lot more secure for you.
It's more expensive if you're especially if you're downloading big files. And
listen, you need to think about, like, oh, is my Dropbox going to connect and download 2 gigabytes of stuff or whatever? Right. But if you just need to check your email for 2 minutes, it's really a better idea.
Absolutely. And I spend most of my time, I have a Verizon MiFi that sits in my backpack that usually just kind of serves up everything that I want. It kind of it solves that problem. But when I'm downloading, a lot of times I'll be at an airport and I'm like, okay, now I'm gonna download a bunch of movies or TV shows. It's usually for me like, oh, I got a bunch of Alton Brown goodies that I want to watch, and but I'll hit download, and that's what I use it for. Is to suck those down. And I also have the advantage of a VPN, so that I can log on to pretty quickly and kind of bypass the more dangerous part of that network. So that
it's surprising.
Go ahead.
It's surprising that their Wi-Fi's been around for so long, and there's so many pain points. Really, actually, no matter what platform that you're on. Where I get, the number of times I've stood like on a sidewalk because I needed to look up something or get something off of my notes app or whatever. And why are you? Damn it! Why aren't you connecting? Why aren't you connecting? You're saying there's 4 bars of service, but you're not. Oh, that's right. There's an AT&T. I can see the logo of an AT&T store 2 blocks away, and the signal is just strong enough for the Wi-Fi to want to connect to that for the internet. I have to just turn the damn thing off. You really have to. There should be like utilities that let you say that do not automatically connect only to these Wi-Fi hotspots that I'm going to tell you. And not only that, but if I am telling you to connect to in iOS and macOS, there needs to be the ability to say, by the way, this Wi-Fi hotspot is actually a cellular connection. It is metered. So gee, please, if you see any other Wi-Fi hotspot that I've told you about, do not keep the connection to the metered connection. iOS 11, I'm still really disappointed that I can't just like long press on the Wi-Fi icon and then pick from a pop-up or even through Bluetooth, pick a Wi-Fi source or pick a Bluetooth connection to switch to. I'm still kind of bummed that I have to go through. I still have to go through settings in order to do that. My iPad, of course, doesn't have 3D Touch. I know it's a little bit shorter if you have 3D Touch, but there's so many pain points in Wi-Fi that I wish that a lot of those would be addressed, not just on iOS, but again, pretty much on every other device that I use.
Well, I feel like there's a lot of pain points in iOS 11 as well. Has everyone got iOS 11 installed?
Oh,
yeah.
I feel like is it just me, or is the TV app kind of like the worst app ever? Like
we could have said that a few months ago before iOS 11. See the TV app for me, it's on that list of things that the first few times I used it, it made such a non-impression that I kind of forgot that it's like the stock app. It's like I just don't. It doesn't. It's not even. I'm not even aware that this is an app on my device. And what has to happen is that I'll have to read about how the TV app connects to Latvian porn sites without it being asked. Then I'll launch it to see what that bug is, or if someone tells me how wonderful this app is. It really, I just do. The Notes app, I don't use it day to day, but I know it exists. The TV app, it's like, that's the Netflix app. No. Oh, you mean my Sling app for accessing Sling? No. So what is the TV app doing?
The thing about it is that it's like you click on it, and my general experience, if you're not connected to a fast internet connection, is that you just get a white screen, and then you sit there and wait for like 2 minutes while it decides that, oh right, you're not connected, and then I'll show you some of what you downloaded, but I'm not really going to show you everything that you downloaded because I don't know if you're ready for that. I mean, it seems like it just seems like this mess of it wants to work, and the biggest complaint I have is that as someone who travels a lot, is that if I'm not connected to a really fast connection, it just is it expects you to have 60 up and down to actually operate properly. Jim, am I off here, or is it still a work in progress?
No, I think it's still a work in progress. And to me, the bigger work in progress is single sign-on. Being an Xfinity customer, I was expecting single sign-on to really work, and it doesn't. And if single sign-on works, then I think the TV app works a lot better.
Right.
But we're as a Comcast customer anyway, when single sign-on doesn't work, and I still have to go through and authenticate each app, I just give up. I say, Well,
I think that it's dangerous. So a lot of the media companies, and I think the media company, this is a whole probably different show, but the to stand on a soapbox for just a second, because we're watching this. I've had to be on a bunch of panels at different conferences over the last 2 weeks, so I've been thinking about it a lot. And the thing that I think is that Hollywood, the risk that Hollywood is in right now, is that this market could move very, very fast away from them. And it is. I look at my kids. My kids don't have any. I cut the cord 10 years ago. So we turned on cable access for like a month a couple years ago, and suddenly my kids were asking for 1,000 things that they didn't even know existed the month before, and I decided let's go back to just YouTube. So they don't really have an experience of that. But what happens for me, and I don't know if this is for everyone, but when I have to do the sign-on that you're talking about, because I'm a cord cutter, I can't get to that. So that channel ceases to exist for me. So now if it's not on, like I don't know what's on CBS or on, a lot of these other things, because it's become a pain. And then what's happened is that like a gel that is all just filled in with other things, So now whether it's Apple TV or my Netflix or Hulu or, HBO or Showtime, the ones that have been easy to get into and to pay for. I don't, I'm not paying for TV, so I'm fine with paying $10 a month for the things that I really watch. That's just filled up all my time. Like now I don't think about watching the other things. And I think that is going to be. Do we see that as a risk for our media partners? You're not sure.
I mean, it's such a tricky business for Apple to get into, because I can't think of another platform where there is such a total lack of hardware loyalty in the populace than TV. They really don't care they might even be an evangelist for their Roku box of Apple TV for all their friends for like a year and a half, but then they get their first LG TV that has WebOS and a really good Netflix app, and they didn't get around to plugging in their Apple TV right away to the new set. And it's 2 months later, and they've forgotten they even had an Apple TV, because this is just, as soon as they get to, it's whatever gets you to Netflix, whatever gets you to Hulu, whatever gets you to HBO Go, you just don't care about it as soon as you get there. So if Apple has really got such a big challenge ahead of itself to find some way to demonstrate to itself that a $150, $200 box is worth their buying. On other platforms, they're doing it by saying that here is your game system that also is a really good way to run Netflix. Apple, I really think that the way for them to do it is to sort of do the same magic they did with the Apple Watch. I mean, for heaven's sakes, the Apple TV and the Apple Watch are even the same shape. It's a thick, rounded square. But if they basically say that here is a computer that is on 24/7, it's always connected to the internet 24/7, which means that it can be essentially your HomeKit monitor 24/7. It can essentially be the device that acts as the firewall between all the Macs and iOS devices in your home network and the world outside, so that you can simply say that on your iPhone, use the file, or your iPad, use the Files app, not just to sync things through iCloud, but also to, if you need to, share the screen of your iMac back home, or even just pull some files off the hard drive there. They have to, it seems as though Apple either doesn't have the infrastructure or just doesn't have the interest in making devices that are multi-platform for everybody. Where they excel is saying that we can make a watch that only works with an iPhone, but oh my God, look how well it works with this iPhone. So they could do an Apple TV that does the same thing, only it's not a network, it's not a generic network device. But if you have Macs, if you have iPhones, boy, does this make that iPhone much, much better.
Right, and we're gonna talk through the new Apple TV in detail. But right before that, Leo's got yet another couple things he'd like to say.
Yes, Leo's still on vacation, but he's somehow weirdly still doing commercials. I'll be back next week. I miss you guys. Thank you for holding down the fort. And thank you to ZipRecruiter for making this possible. We couldn't go on vacation, Lisa and I, if we didn't have a great staff. And one of the reasons we have a great staff is because we have a great hiring process, thanks to ZipRecruiter. The right person can make your company. The wrong person can break your company. Because you know what a company is? It's just the people who work there. That's it. That's the whole thing. That's what a company is. So if you're in charge of hiring, do it right. The right person is out there. So is the wrong person, right? And ZipRecruiter is going to make the difference between hiring the wrong person and hiring the right person. First of all, you've got to reach the right person. You know they're out there, but what job board are they looking for? Where are they looking for work? With ZipRecruiter, you are posting once to ZipRecruiter, but then they post to 100+ job boards, plus all the social networks, to Twitter and Facebook, everywhere. So the chance of that right person seeing your posting goes way up, way up. But I have to say, the wrong person will also see it. In fact, many wrong people will see it. But ZipRecruiter makes this easy to screen them out, because every applicant goes right into the ZipRecruiter interface. It doesn't come to your inbox or your phone. No, they have this great interface. They format all the resumes so that they're the same, so it's easy to read them. You can screen them out without even any interaction on your part with true-false questions, yes or no. Have you ever been arrested? Do you know how to use, Word, Microsoft Word, whatever your question is, essay questions too, whatever you need. So that's going to screen out the bad people. You then can go through the rest of the applicants, rank them, and hire the right one fast. 80% of employers who post on ZipRecruiter get qualified candidates in the site within a day. 1 day. It is simply the most effective way. You're going to cast the widest net and then have the tools to really hone it down to get the right person fast. And by the way, if you're currently looking for a job, ZipRecruiter will help you find a job in any industry, including technology, government, business, finance, and more. It's a great way to both apply for a job and to get the right applicant in your system. You're going to look. You got to use this. As from one business owner to another, try it. ZipRecruiter.com/twit. By the way, check out the ZipRecruiter blog for recruiting tips. And if you're an applicant for career advice, it's a really great service, a great company. ZipRecruiter.com/twit. Find out why it's been used by businesses of every size to find the most qualified candidates with immediate results. And you can post there for free right now. ZipRecruiter.com/twit. We thank them for their support of MacBreak Weekly and for making it possible for Lisa and me to take some time off. I will be back next week, but now back to the guys.
So we've got the Apple TV, as Andy started to dig into, we got the Apple, some of the issues that the Apple TV has. The Apple TV is now shipping. Some people have it. I'm still waiting because, of course, I was in the air when the sale started. Not that I'm bitter. But it's 4K HDR for those of you who have a TV that can handle that, which is still few and far between. I mean, I think now it's becoming kind of normal, but and this will hopefully push it forward. Does anyone have has anyone got it in their house? Is anyone using it with the appropriate TV to properly enjoy it?
I don't, but that's actually one of my questions. I have a 4K TV, and I use Apple TV a lot, but I use it for Netflix. If I'm going to watch Netflix, I'll switch over to Apple TV and use that. But I have Netflix on my LG 4K TV. But 4K won't come in because apparently it's the wrong kind of 4K or there's something going on. So I'm not sure if my TV is compatible with Apple TV 4K or if it's not.
That's interesting. I haven't. Oh, and I don't know yet. I don't have my Apple TV yet. I've got a Vizio 4K that it was on sale at some point, and so I bought it. And I've been, I'm probably going to get an HDR one. I don't think it should be a compatibility issue. That's a very odd. That standard is pretty straightforward. But
Jim, I heard that you have to have the right cable.
Yeah, I was about to say. What are you using, a monoprice or an Amazon cable, or is it truly an Apple TV cable?
Well, the Netflix app is built in to the TV, so I stopped. I didn't use the one that was with Apple TV.
You're not using your Apple TV at all. You're just using the built-in app in your TV.
I tried using the built-in app on the TV because my TV was 4K, and yeah. I assumed that the app was too, but it said that it wasn't compatible.
But the question is that what cable is going between? We have a lot of trouble with 4K cables. So okay. the question is the cable between the Apple TV and the TV. Do you know what cable that is?
No, I don't.
That is, so what's interesting, and I thought the standard Apple TV. Or the standard Apple cable, the little black one, which, by the way, is just, there's something about that cable that is very nice. It's, they're not, it's weird. Like what Apple does, like they pay attention to all these little things. And like, I only carry around those little Apple ones because I always know they're going to work, and they will work with 4K. And what's interesting is they've worked with 4K for like years. So any Apple cable that, whatever standard they built that cable for the last 2 or 3 years, it's able to carry 4K. But we have all kinds of problems with other cheaper cables, even ones that say that they're 4K compatible, won't show up. And we do a lot of 4K production, so you get into dealing with that. This is the one place where we do tend to spend some money on cables, because, and it's also on long runs. So Once you go over, 6 feet, then you start getting into a situation where the cables really matter really fast. You can get the Corning ones do work, which are like they're very expensive, but they go 30 meters or whatever. But those are they convert the HDMI to optical and then back. But anything over 6 feet, a lot of them work under 6 feet, but once they go over 6 feet, it becomes problematic. And if they're going through anything to get to your TV, that oftentimes has become problematic. So I don't know what those things are, but that I think that's probably the compatibility issue. Has anything 4K worked from the Apple TV, or just not Netflix?
Well, I haven't tried 4K on the Apple TV yet. I don't have one of the new ones, but I was trying this on the built-in.
Oh, okay. So you're saying the built-in 4K doesn't work?
Yeah.
Okay, then I'm completely giving. I gave a tirade.
But that's good advice for when I do get the Apple TV 4K.
That's fascinating. That the Netflix app doesn't work on its own TV.
Right. In 4K.
Oh, it might be it could be the HEVC if they're supporting HEVC, and whether that chip is capable of managing that. But it'll be interesting to see if an external one works. So yeah. But the Andy, have you tested it? Have you looked at it?
I don't have it. I'm not going to be checking it out until. The problem is I don't even have a 4K TV, so I was going to wait until that's on my upgrade. That's on my upgrade list. My good living room TV is like the first big HD TV I bought, and last night I noticed that it had stopped going from just simply being a little bit darker around the edges of the frame to now it's darker and a little bit purple. So this is
it's good. So, you're getting close.
I have to say that I'm very, very pleased that it's like if it just suddenly stopped working, then like, God damn it. Well, I don't necessarily want to buy a TV right now. I want to wait for a few months until I get an HDR TV. But now it's just saying, we don't. It's like the Bluesmobile. It knows that as soon as it's reached my destination, as soon as like Amazon delivers my new 4K HDR TV, that's when the screen is going to dissolve into like a pile of like gently pulsating pixels on the carpet.
But as it is now, it's a good excuse that you're really not that excited about Blackmagic's DaVinci Resolve. There's not going to be a lot of color correction going on on the current TV.
I mean, because this is obviously I've had this TV for a long time, and I've had this problem for a little while. I love it when there's such a huge. I love it when you're able to wait until there's going to be such an obviously huge benefit. For me, 4K was going to be a plus, but not a huge plus. HDR is going to be such a huge plus that that's the thing I'm waiting for. And also I'm not in a rush to get the new Apple TV because, again, if you've got 4K, particularly if you've got HDR, oh my God, what a huge bonus. Other than that, it's not going to be a very practical upgrade. I got the software update to last year's model, and that was very nice, but. Well, I'm content to wait. I might buy it in December just so that I can get a review in play, but I haven't cared about it enough to say, Apple, hi, could you send me one for 30 or 60 days so I can watch TV in my kitchen, which is the only TV that doesn't have like a smart box connected to it.
Now, I do think that this is going to be, Tonya, don't you think that they had to do both 4K and HDR? I mean, if you're going to do it, you're not going to upgrade it for another year. Even though they're a little ahead, it's better than being a little too far behind.
Oh yeah, I think it's a little bit analogous to High Sierra, where they put a whole bunch of stuff in High Sierra that it's like in a house. They supported the foundation and they upgraded the electrical system, but you can't really see it when you're in the house. And so I think it's a little bit like that with the Apple TV, where if you're buying one new today, you probably should get the 4K one because it's gonna last you longer. Eventually you'll get a 4K TV if you don't now, and then all of a sudden you'll kind of have what you want. And I think to be kind of a player in the field, Apple needed to absolutely have an Apple TV that does this. Unfortunately, I'm with Andy. I have a very nice TV. It's not 4K, and I'm probably going to sit this generation of Apple TV out and see what they come up with another year or two to get my next Apple TV.
I think that one of the things that is the lock-in for the folks that do use Apple TVs, and for me, I've kind of moved away from going to movies very often. I'm part of that slide of people who just don't go. And I think that part of it is when you're a parent, you have young kids, and it's really expensive, and you're not sure if there's really any payoff for it. It's good to do it. I mean, like literally, I think that there was a time in my life where I think I went to a movie every week, and now I go to a movie maybe every quarter. And part of it is I feel like I got a pretty good sound system. I've got a pretty good TV, and I'm like, I don't know, like if it's Star Wars, I'm gonna go, and I think that, but outside of an experience, I think that the hard part is, these start to become big. So as a result, I just buy a lot of movies, so that I just have them there. I don't have to worry about ordering them. I can download them on any of my devices and so on and so forth. I mean, would you say that, Jim, would you say that's part of the lock-in? That's part of why Apple provides the Apple TV, is to make sure that there's that ecosystem that is still existent for Apple users, that even though there might be other things, they're not necessarily competing with Roku. They're just making sure that there's a great solution for people who already are in kind of in the system.
Apple, it makes, I think, what a lot of us, and you said it earlier about internet, if I'm not on in 30 seconds, I'm off. So what we want a lot now is convenience. So if we sit down at night and say, oh, what should we do? Hey, you want to watch a movie? Sure. Go on Apple TV. There it is. It's all done. 30 seconds, you can rent a movie and you're done. And they're able to keep a lot of people in the ecosystem by doing this, by making it so convenient. Are the songs that we listen to on Apple Music or buy on iTunes the best quality music sound-wise that we could possibly get? No, but it's very convenient. You hear a song and say, God, I like that song. I want to buy that. Or I want to download it to my library. And 30 seconds, there it is in your library. You have it now. So a lot of what they're able to do is about convenience.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And Apple TV is the same way.
In some ways, do we think that it was a mistake that Apple got out of the kind of the Wi-Fi business? I mean, so I think that they've kind of gotten, they don't really support that in the same way that they used to. I know I have a Ubiquity, their little amplifier or whatever in my house now, but it feels like that's like a hub that you wished was an Apple product. Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah. I would really like to know the inside story about Apple and their Wi-Fi. I edited a book by Glenn Fleischman about the airport base stations for like probably 15 years. And we can't there's nothing to update in the book really, because there's no new products. And I keep thinking, okay, they're going to come out with like a new, Apple TV HomePod, base station kind of home hub thing that's going to pull this all in. Like, 3 years from now, we're going to understand what they're thinking today. And maybe they're even, have some products they're working on internally that we don't know about that may never see the light of day, and they're having trouble finding, the right product. But I think there is a lot of room for Apple in this space. I mean, we were just talking about the AirPods, and we were saying how much we like everything about the design and the case and everything. And I think there's a lot of room with home networking for Apple to come up with really wonderful products that probably only Apple can make.
Well, and I think that, there's a, like for the Ubiquity is like the one that for me, I mean, we use pro versions of what they have, big point-to-points and Wi-Fi meshes and everything else. But the home one, the interesting thing about it is it is very Apple-esque in the way that I can hand somebody a code. Like someone comes to the house, I can give them a code that only is going to last for the 3 hours that they're there. Or there's a lot of those little things that are super easy for me. And on my iPhone, I can just kind of set it all up. If I feel like there's something wrong with my network, I just go on my iPhone and check it out. And it feels like it wants to be an Apple product that Apple doesn't make. But when you're talking about HomeKit, when you're talking about tying all these things together, it feels like a place that they're not innovating. Do you agree, Andy?
Yeah, absolutely. It's unfortunate. I've had a whole bunch of different mesh networks in the office and in the house testing them out for the past year or two, and there is really no reason for anybody to buy Apple networking hardware. So it's a huge disadvantage because you don't get as you said, the ability to set up and manage a network the apps that you get with Google Wi-Fi or with these other mesh networks, they're so easy to set up and they're so easy to manage. When there's a problem, you just light it up and will immediately tell you, here's what the problem is, and here's when things went south. Here's what we think the problem is, and to say nothing about the fact that so many of the devices that we're putting in our houses work so much better if you can access them from outside the house. And port forwarding has always just been a total nightmare. I had a Plex server in my house working for a year and a half, and I did not have the ability to connect to it from the outside until like a year later, not because it was such a nightmare, but because the automatic stuff that was supposed to work automatically did not work. I fiddled with it for 5 minutes, then recognized that I don't have the emotional capacity to spend 90 minutes getting port forwarding work. There's all these different ways that Apple could have made a Wi-Fi network that not only solves the problem of why is it that I can get Wi-Fi everywhere except for in the sunroom, to why is it so hard for to get my game console to work with the network it's supposed to work with remotely. And they kind of missed the boat. They just didn't have anybody internally that was willing to be excited about that sort of stuff. And now they've been pretty much surpassed. But the other problem that they're kind of facing because of that absence is that there really is a need for a consumer headless network device, whether it's something like an Apple TV, whether it's something like the HomePod. There really has to be that sort of consumer device that is smart on the network and does wonderful things for the user that they can't really do as well on a phone or through a keyboard. And having this box on your network that's live 24/7 is such a big part of everybody's strategy right now. So it's just too bad that Apple missed that boat. I hope that they jump on it a little bit later on. But one of the other things that we've noticed through Apple that's been consistent year after year after year is that they're really not interested in doing something unless there's something that they can bring that is fresh and unique to the platform. Partly because,
I do think that something that would be fresh and unique would be that it just works and you just set it up and you know, like, for instance, I think that, that a personal VPN, for instance, would be, you know, I have a company where we have a VPN and I just hit a little button and boom, I'm in that encased world. But it always seems like if I had a Wi-Fi at home that could manage it. I mean, so we use, you know, the Ubiquity thing is what I use in my house. The company has a Meraki system, which works great as far as tying all that stuff together into the cloud, but it's really expensive. You know, it's not something that you can use as a home user, but when you think about all these home services of my iCloud and sharing photos and being able to get back to my desktop and being able to do all those other things and keeping that all secure, it seems like it's something, Jim, would you agree that Apple could innovate in?
Well, what's really strange to me about networking and Apple goes back to something that Tonya was saying. Usually when Apple backs off of a product category that it's in and is doing well in, that usually means that there's something else coming. So, you know, a HomePod that now acts as something, or an Apple TV that now acts as something. And we haven't seen it. It's been years, and we have not seen that new product to the point where users of their networking products, including me, are looking at moving on. Because, yes, I can't get my Wi-Fi network in my backyard. I can't get my Wi-Fi in rooms that are not in the same room as the base station because the Apple stuff just doesn't seem to work as well. So, you know, as much as I'm waiting for this product to come, Apple won't say one way or another, look, we're done. We're finished with this whole networking thing. So move on, and we're going to continue on with the iPhone, which would be great. Just do that, say it. Done.
Yeah.
But I think that
like they don't make printers anymore. They don't make screens anymore. Yeah. Yeah,
and the problem is that there are so many things about what they're doing that would make a huge difference if they controlled that entire pipeline. Like if they had a you know, if they prioritize video traffic or prioritize voice traffic or prioritize, you know, those types of things that are going to make all those little bits and pieces of all their other products work well. It just feels like an ecosystem that wants to be there that is missing. What were you going to say, Andy?
No. I was just going to say. I mean, that is such a good opportunity for them. They I also really like your idea of having a private personal VPN. That's a feature that my Synology server can do, but it is tricky enough to set up that I'm like, okay, I'd rather give this other company $50 a year to do this for me, and also not run it incompetently as I would if I were running my first. I'm not sure that I want a VPN that's been run by someone. Hey, I'll do a great job because I've never done this before, so maybe I'd rather. But yeah, I mean, especially given that it's more and more important, it has more and more traction at Apple to be able to say that if there's an Apple logo on it, you can be sure that there is a much higher level of security and privacy attached to this, because this is deeply entwined in our DNA, that privacy and security is a really important thing to put in everything. So if they were to say that we're having a brand new mesh product that gives you every advantage of mesh networks, and really if your Wi-Fi hardware is more than 3 years old, if you go out and buy a simple mesh network, you are going to be shocked at all the stuff that you thought was just simply part of humanity's suffering upon this mortal plane of existence that you just don't have to deal with anymore, because
but
I'm saying that if Apple were to say we have a new mesh network and it gives you all those advantages, but by the way, there's also a switch in iOS 11 settings that says use home VPN or home privacy, which means that no matter where you're connecting from, whatever internet connection is directly facing your phone or your tablet or your notebook is just going to be used to connect securely to your personal home piece of hardware, VPN. So that you're not even connecting through Apple servers, so we don't have the ability to do anything but to steer the traffic to this home device. Other than that, we don't see anything. You're completely secure. That would be something that, again, all the people that are buying Apple TVs because they've had such good experiences with Apple hardware that they don't want to really think about the 3 or 4 alternatives where I'm good enough. They will definitely embrace that sort of advantage.
No, absolutely. And coming back to the Apple TV, a couple little quick notes as we go through that is YouTube won't work in 4K. It still works. It's not like the YouTube app won't work, but it won't work in 4K because it's VP9 and Apple hasn't isn't supporting VP9. Probably won't. But Tonya, do you think who do you think is going to blink, or are they going to blink? Is YouTube just going to ignore the Apple TV? Or is Apple going to finally support VP9? What do you think is going to be the outcome here?
Oh, well, I mean, sooner or later, YouTube's going to support 4K video, so it's just a matter of time before.
Well, they support it now, but they're very committed, or they've been very committed to VP9. Oh. Everything is in VP9 right now. So switching over to HEVC and switching over to HEVC with the licensing would be very expensive for YouTube. Do you think Apple TV is worth it?
Yeah, I think a lot of lawyers and business people are going to get together in a room and they're going to figure that out. But sooner or later, I bet it will work. And in the meantime, watch YouTube somewhere else.
I don't think Apple TV is worth it for Google to do that.
Right.
Unless pricing and everything else comes in line. There's just no reason.
Unless Apple makes it worth it.
There's just no reason for Google to put AVC, on Apple TV. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge investment on their part because the licensing is atrocious. It hasn't changed that much. It's just that Apple happens to be a license holder, so it makes it a little simpler there. But the onerous system, overages of HEVC for the person creating the content or distributing that content, it's not for us. We don't pay that, but they do. And when you think about Apple, I don't know what the flow is. Would you think that Apple TV is probably less than 1% of YouTube's 4K distribution?
Mm-hmm.
I would say definitely.
Even if everybody who owns an Apple TV right now was watching 4K, it would still probably be 1% of people who watch.
Yeah. Also, keep in mind that YouTube, one of Apple's big advantages is that it has $220 billion in the bank, which means that the decisions that make sense for them are going to be very, very different from any other company that could not spend the next 2 years perfecting their grandmother's fudge recipe and not shipping any products and still be okay.
Right.
Google has YouTube, and there is no competition for it. Of course, there's Vimeo. Yes, of course, there's Dailymotion, but YouTube is the platform where people want to publish on. So it's not as though they're going to use that as a competitive edge, but I think it's the reason why the YouTube app on Apple TV is good, but not great. It's not as good as the YouTube app on Android TV. Again, I don't think it's because they are deliberately dumbing it down. It's because they don't think that it's really important to have the best experience possible on Apple TV and competing platforms. Well, So I think that it's more important for Apple to make sure that Google gets on board with Apple than Google needs Apple. I'm sorry, that's convoluted. But.
Well, and most of the content, I'm not sure if it would change the quality of the content, or my kids would watch any more or less of YouTube if it was in 4K
also,
or upscaled 1080p.
How much 4K content of value is on YouTube anyway?
Right now,
people don't. When I go to see somebody tear down an Apple Newton message pad, I don't really care about 4K content. I care that it's well lit, that they're not breathing into their microphone, and that I can actually follow the story.
Right. Well, and I think that they are YouTube. All the original content that's coming out now with YouTube, of course, is all being generated in 4K. So that becomes which is the same for Netflix and Amazon, and which Apple already has kind of lined up. So those are the things I think that are when we look into the future as to whether that's going to be whether you could. And I think the danger for Apple is that it does open up this position where either someone's just using the YouTube app on their 4K. I think that's the most likely, is I'm just going to use the YouTube app on my Vizio or my Sony or whatever, and then just use my Apple TV. Or do I get a Roku because it supports a 4K solution for YouTube? Yeah. And then for Apple, that's a kind of a chink in the armor.
Yeah.
Also,
I mean, go ahead. I'm sorry I interrupted.
The Apple's extended the rental by 48 hours. I might actually start renting movies now, because 24 hours was. I think that was a big jump. Jim, does that mean anything to you? The rental increasing from 24 to 48 hours?
It's a big increase for a lot of people, especially those with families. That's a huge increase because, as we all know, when you rent a movie with a family, stuff happens, and you don't always get to finish that. For me, as an individual, that didn't really mean a lot to me, because I don't push the rent button until I've got my bowl of popcorn, and I'm sitting down and I'm ready to watch. And if somebody comes to the door, well, you can come back in 2 hours, because I'm not moving. So I'm very cranky and set in my ways. So so for me, that didn't mean a lot. No, I know. But. So for me, that didn't mean as much as it did for a lot of other people. But I understand, being a parent and having gone through all that, how much that does mean for other people. Well,
and I think that, again, I think people like me have made very specific decisions about, I'm just not going to go to the movies very often. I'm just going to watch. I'm just going to go ahead and buy the movie, and it takes a lot of the stress out of buying the movie because I didn't go see it in the theater. So it's I feel like I saved 85% by buying it rather than because taking kids to a theater and buying them popcorn and drinks is, I think,
expensive.
It's like $80, just in case you're wondering. That's the current going rate for it.
Yeah.
Also,
but what are your choices though? Take them to a hockey game where it's $150 a ticket.
Oh yeah.
Plus, well, they wouldn't drink beer, but they would have a hot dog or something. But that's going to be $500. So a movie's actually pretty cheap.
Yes, no, it is. Yep. And go ahead, Tonya.
And a rental is just down in the basement. It's so cheap compared to the hockey game with the hot dogs.
Right.
No, absolutely. So I think that'll be interesting. Also, you can only stream the 4K. You can't download them. Were you really downloading them before? I didn't know you could download movies onto your Apple TV. Was that possible before? Did I miss that memo?
I wasn't. I just stream them.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it always just streams. I don't know. Maybe it doesn't preview as much. A lot of times I'll get to the movie and start it and then pause, and then I'll walk off and do some stuff and come back just to make sure that there's no chance of buffering, which my kids are very good at doing a big chorus of buffering. if it stops, they're very technical about.
Let me tell you ungrateful kids.
Yeah.
Let me tell you about when we had the laser disc. You'd only get 30 minutes. Then you have to get off the sofa right while they're attacking the Death Star, flip over this big platter, and we didn't have any sass-mouthed kids telling us
that it was buffering. Yeah.
I am curious. I don't know why there's so much RAM in the new version of the Apple TV. Because the Apple TV has always intrigued me because it is my other main streaming device is an Android TV device that is made by NVIDIA, and it is so powerful that it can actually it doesn't just have a Plex app on it. It can actually act as a Plex server in and of itself. It can record TV shows through the network devices, the antenna devices on my network, store them locally. I mean, if I were to be leaving the house for a whole week, I could simply unplug this little paperback book like box and the power supply and an HDMI cable, and whatever hotel I plug into, I will have about 300 gigabytes of TV shows and Blu-ray movies I've ripped and my entire music library.
Right.
And it costs about the same amount of money as an Apple TV. Whereas the Apple TV, the thing that's interesting to me is that it is, in many ways, it's as powerful as that NVIDIA box, but it really does present itself as a humble Roku. And so I keep wondering what is it about the amount of stuff it has to buffer between game content and 4K content that requires that much RAM, or what is Apple planning next year that's going to need this kind of future proofing?
I do think it's just about games.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah,
I just think it's about games. Yeah.
Apple's
trying to make this Apple TV more of an all-in-one type of console, thing that you can use. So that's all I think it's about. I mean, to me, the Apple TV needs to be more media right now, but until that happens, I think that they're going to focus a little bit on the games too.
And have you found any games that were really fun to play on the Apple TV?
No.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna. That's
just curious. I've had trouble. I bought a lot of games, and we played them a little bit. There's a little bowling game with your controller, which I almost threw through a bowling game that you use a small controller in your hand is a horrible idea. Let me tell you, it's a horrible idea because you're swinging right at the TV, and let's just say if you got a little excited and you let go. You're just really glad that you swang up and shattered it against the wall and not stuck it through the TV. I'm not saying that I did that. But
Alex, you and I need to get together, have a few beer, and do that, and record it. That could be a whole MacBreak Weekly right there, just the two of us doing that.
Also, it's a great way to mess up your TV, so you need to buy a new 4K TV.
Exactly. That would be
That's what I love being on with Tonya, because she is the smartest one of the whole group, and she just came up with a brilliant idea.
Yeah, I got my whole plan for how we're getting a new TV now.
So the last little thing, I think we're gonna finish with one more thing, and then we're gonna move on. But there was one thing not connected to the Apple TV that started to come out. Apple Pay is now it hasn't come out yet as far as peer-to-peer. Do we think that the peer-to-peer payments are going to be a big deal?
Yeah, definitely. Given that almost everybody who has an iPhone has friends who have iPhones and Apple Watches, the ability to do it, and also how easily Apple Pay works, the ability to simply say at the end of a meal, go bip 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 bip, and then just simply tap a phone, or just not even have to do anything, do sort of airdrop money to somebody else. If this is nothing that we don't have technically the ability to do right now, my banking app can do this sort of payments. Mm-hmm. PayPal can do the kind of payments. All kinds of different systems can do that sort of payments. But the reason why I still settle the check by handing over cash, or doing the usual square dancing of cards and money for people at a diner booth, is because it's not the first time I'm going to have to do that. I'm going to have to find out, okay, do you have the proper apps to receive the money, and are you comfortable with me sending you $11.73? But with Apple, I'm sure that when Apple does it, it's going to be as simple as, here are the people who are maybe they'll probably do something similar to AirDrop that they'll call something else that sounds more secure. But you'll just simply tap your watch. You'll say there are 3 people in your contacts that are set up, that have basically the slot in their piggy bank is open. And you can just simply say, great, put $12.88 from my separate account into their piggy bank, and suddenly it fills their fund. People are going to actually use it. Apple's has core strengths. One of them is to take something that has already been there, but people don't use, and turn to something that people are thrilled to use and demonstrate to other people. And this is a great place to break that.
No, Andy's right. I mean, that's looking at the types of payments in this Apple Pay on messages and things like that. When you think about what could be really big, it's not going to be these large payments. It's going to be all four of us are out to dinner, and Andy picks up the bill. Okay, great. Mine was $20 of that bill. Here you go. Boom, done.
Yep.
And that's going to be the big thing, but it's going to be used a lot.
I still feel like.
Can I just tell you how complicated these things are? I go out to breakfast with some friends on a regular basis, and it gets so complicated and so tedious that literally what I do, like these are really good friends. Literally what I do is I reach into my wallet, I pull out literally every piece of paper currency I have in there, whether it's $18 or $300. I put it in front of the person who has designated themselves as the weekly person who pays the check. He can take $1. He's welcome to take $200, and he simply returns the wad back to me, and I put it back in my wallet. That's how
I have to go out to breakfast with you.
There you go.
Yeah. I go out to dinner every Wednesday night with a bunch, and it's just $10 a person. It's pizza and beer, and it doesn't matter how much beer you drink, how much pizza. It's just too complicated with 11 people to sort it out. So everyone just puts in $10. Sometimes the waitress gets a really good tip. Sometimes, we make sure, it's okay. But basically it's $10. That's just how it is. If I don't know, actually with so many people in a loud bar, if we would be able to coordinate anything. So it'll be really super interesting to see what Apple comes up with. Also, there's always the person who wants to put it on their credit card because they're trying to get points for something. Right. So if that person has their card loaded in, hopefully they'll be able to use that and get their points, and everyone else can just send it along. We'll see. We'll have to. There's a lot of questions, really.
Of course,
it's subtle. Paying for the check, it's like the Iger sanction or something. The amount of interlocking little. Everyone has their own goals and their own priorities. Whether it's I just want this socially awkward thing about figuring out how much anyone to be over with, all the way to I really want to try to get that trip to Hawaii. And then some people are like, well, I would like a trip to Hawaii too. How come we're helping to send you to Hawaii? Maybe that order of onion rings is on you instead of being split 4 ways.
Yeah. Well, and I know this sounds crazy, but I do feel like Apple could be one opportunity sitting in front of them. I'm not saying that they're planning to do anything like this or not, but one opportunity that seems like sitting in front of them is that one thing that most of us almost all dislike is our bank. And so there's and Apple is pretty good at taking something that we didn't it wasn't before the iPhone. We didn't like our phone. We just hated it less than all the other phones, right? And in the same way, I think most of us get the relationship with our personal bank. Oftentimes is that we hate it less than all the other banks, but it's not like we like that bank. And also, all these banks are doing screwy things. They're investing in all this crazy stuff, and they might fail, and they don't know this stuff. Apple is the one company in the world that could build a bank that literally the only thing it does with your money is loan it to other people buying their products. That's your interest is the fact that they're charging people to buy their products. And they're using that to loan them the money, and they have enough money to back it up. What were you gonna say, Andy?
You're acting as though your money is in some sort. It's not here. Your money is in Leo's iPad, and it's in Cheryl's Apple Watch.
Andy's iMac. That's good.
Sorry,
but the thing is that it seems like that they're getting into all of these bits and pieces where they will have solved everything other than just saying, hey, you could actually just bank with us. Anyway, so it's just something to think about. It seems like it could. I think no one here agrees with me.
The only problem with that is that they can do payments as a service, but if they're going to try to be like a bank, they would have to remember that when they created the Apple Watch, they started off by hiring away everybody in the fitness and health industries from really great jobs to come work at Apple. When they started working on a car, they hired away everybody who has a wonderful, huge careers in the audio industry. If they were to start doing things that were more like conventional banking, they would have to hire people who are having huge careers in the banking industry, and anybody who has Exactly. They're in prison, or they're smart enough to have avoided prison, but they're also not they're not going to be swayed by Tim Cook taking them for a walk through the new apricot orchards and saying, well, that's an interesting idea, Ted, but I don't think that we'll find a way to trick people into signing over their mortgages so that we can evict them and then turn the property into vacant lots, because Apple, we're a non-evil company, and then boom, meeting's over.
But like literally, Apple doesn't need to do any housing. They don't need to do anything else. It's like you buy their cars, you buy their things, you buy whatever. That's the only place the money goes. You know, it wouldn't have to go anywhere else. It would all be like a closed system. Anyway, so it's just and you'd borrow money from them to buy more things from them, and then but you'd all do it inside of a bank that you have. I'm just saying.
St. Peter, don't you call me, 'cause I can't go. I sold my soul to the Apple store.
Anyway, so we're running out of time here. We've been chatting away. We're gonna come back with your picks, but right now Leo's got the last word.
Hey, once more, let me interrupt, and then we'll get back to MacBreak Weekly. But I want to tell you about my Ring Video Doorbell. As I travel around the world, I love it that I can see what's happening in front of my house, in front of my door, because I installed a few years ago now the Ring Video Doorbell. It's got a high-def camera, motion sensors, a speaker, and a microphone, plus, of course, a doorbell. So when somebody rings the bell, I can hear it ring, not just in the house, but anywhere. My smartphone goes ding-dong. Actually, it makes a nice wind chime sound. And then I know somebody's ringing the doorbell. I can see who it is in the video. If I want to talk to them, I can. I say, yeah. If it's, UPS, I can say, I'm in the bathtub, just leave it there. I'll sign for it tomorrow or whatever. So I never miss a package. By the way, then I can keep an eye on the package, because the motion sensor, even if somebody doesn't ring the doorbell, it still notifies me there's somebody on your front steps. And you get to set the zone. So I could set it all the way out to the street, all the way down the front path if I want, or just right there. I could say how far to the left, how far to the right. It's really a cool software. It also will keep track of it, so I can go back in time. And that's really useful for, when did the plumber come? He's billed me for 8 hours. How long was he actually there? That kind of thing. You could see who's at your house. You could see when did the kids come home? How late did your son come home last night? That kind of thing. It's great. In fact, they even have a neighborhoods program where you can share your Ring Video Doorbell with your neighbors. They can share it with you, and now you've got a digital video neighborhood watch. It's awesome. Ring doesn't just stop at the front door now. No, they've got a bunch of products now, including the floodlight cams you can put around your house. Lights come on, when people go down the back, or a deer or a raccoon. But not only the lights come on, the camera comes on. You can see. You'll get a notification. You can talk to them. You say, "Raccoon, get away," or "Can I help you, buddy?" You ought to see him jump when you do that. I got one question for you, punk. Do you feel lucky? And if that doesn't scare him, which it probably will, and Halloween's coming, you might want this. You can press a button and send a 110 decibel alarm on that floodlight cam, and then watch those raccoons go running. I love it. That's the Ring floodlight cam. They have different doorbells. They have different products. I could go on. Look, go to the website, ring.com/MacBreak. You can get up to $150 off a Ring of Security kit. Surround your house with cameras, with motion sensing, with microphones and speakers, and it's great, especially because you can see what's going on at your house, even if you're not home or if you're in bed, right? You can say, well, let's see what's going on out there. Hey, you raccoons, get out of here. Ring.com/MacBreak. Go to ring.com/MacBreak and get a great deal, up to $150 on a Ring of Security kit, including 1, 2, or 3 floodlight cams, the Ring Video Doorbell. Wall Street Journal's Best of CES 2017. It is a great product. I'm a big believer. I've used it for years. I tell everybody about it. Everybody in my family now has one. Most of our employees have one. Just gave one to Mike Elgin. He had a great idea. He said, if you run an Airbnb, you put a Ring there. So you'll know when your guests arrive, when they leave. And, of course, it integrates with your smart locks and hubs. I use my Amazon Echo. I can say, Echo, show my front door, and it'll show my front door. I can talk to my front door through my Echo. I love that. Ring.com/MacBreak. And now, I'm watching you guys. It's time to wrap up MacBreak Weekly.
All right, and with that, we have our picks of the week. Tonya, we're going to start with you. Do you have a pick for us?
All right, I have a pick. In fact, if there's time, I have 2 picks, but you'll let me know.
Go for it.
So my first pick is, as a lot of readers know, for a very long time, I was editor-in-chief of the Take Control ebook series, which covered a lot of Apple products over the years. I sold that part of the Tidbits business last spring to one of our main authors, Joe Kissel. So I'm mostly not working on that anymore, but the Take Control team was very busy over the summer, and they have made a bunch of ebooks about iOS 11 and High Sierra. And what's really great about reading an ebook is there's not interstitial videos, there's not ads, there's not pop-ups. You can just really immerse yourself and learn stuff. In particular, they're all good. And the one I wanted to just share with you a little bit is the one Josh Centers wrote and Joe Kissel edited about iOS 11. It is absolutely packed with information about what's new and information about what was recently new that you may have never learned. So go for it. There's various bundles right now on the Take Control sites. You can get hundreds and hundreds of pages of information for not very much. And I highly recommend them all. My second pick is I finally gave in and bought a case thing so that I could carry my iPhone with me while I run. I have resisted this for basically the whole life of the iPhone because I hate stuff hanging off of me when I run. I finally bought one. I just wanted to share it because it works so super well. It is called the RunningBuddy. And it has magnets inside of it that allow this flap here that I'm showing to go inside of a shirt or pair of running shorts. You can put it on the front of you, or you can stick it right over your back, right over your spine, which is where I love to put it. They have different sizes of cases. The one I'm showing right now holds my iPhone 6S just fine. It goes right in. There's a separate pocket I can stick a car key into, and I can even get a few other tiny things into. When I'm running, it doesn't bob, it doesn't bobble, it doesn't blop. It just works. All my running friends are jealous and are slowly checking it out as well. So RunningBuddy gets a very high recommendation from me as an iPhone carrying case, especially for people who run with their phones.
I think the only time I run with my phone or run at all is when I'm missing a flight. So anyway, but
yeah.
but that looks great for that. So so Andy, what's your pick for the week?
Kind of a double pick of the week. I've been looking through the auction catalog for the Debbie Reynolds / Carrie Fisher auction at profilesandhistory.com. They're the auction house that's auctioning off essentially the contents of both of their houses, or at least anything that's semi-interesting and useful. I'm trying to talk myself into and or out of putting a bid in on one of Carrie Fisher's old sofas. There are at least 2 or 3 of them. They're like starting bid $200. And all year long, I really have been looking at like my old sofa that I basically moved into this house with 10 years ago. And that I've been thinking, I should go to the store and I'm like, if I had that money earmarked for buying a sofa, what could be more awesome than owning a sofa that like Carrie Fisher might have like watched Netflix in? Like my butt would be on the same cushion that Carrie Fisher has been in. So I'm trying to talk but in terms of the pick of the week, Apple related, you can bid on page 112 of the auction catalog. You can buy an Apple II computer owned by Debbie Reynolds, serial number A2S1-0082. So that would make it, according to this, one of the first 100 Apple IIs built by Apple Computer. Not the Apple II Plus. This is like the first one they made after the bare-board Apple I. It also claims that Debbie Fisher's son purchased this directly from Steve Jobs. It says here, Todd Fisher took delivery of this computer directly from Steve Jobs in Los Altos. So don't know what exactly that means. If that means that he he was employee 0001 of the first Apple store. Like you show up at mom's garage with a check for whatever. But in technical terms, it is an Apple II, so floating point, no floating point basic. However, there's a low resolution picture of it with the lid off, and I do think that there is a 16K language card next to the power supply. It says that the 8K was upgraded to 24K of RAM, which would also support the idea that this is a 16K language card. So you would be able to do floating point operations, not just stuck to integer basic there. There also seems to be a disk controller card there in slot number 6, although it doesn't mention that you get any disk drives or anything with it. They're saying this very early Apple II represents a milestone in computing history that launched uninterrupted Apple brand loyalty from Debbie Reynolds and her organization. So if you want probably the most glamorous Apple II vintage computer you can get. I mean, she starred again in Singing in the Rain. She was the unsinkable Molly Brown. She had a Vegas act that went on for years and years and years, and she was the mother of Carrie Fisher. That alone should make this the coolest Apple II ever. Bid there it's thinking that it's going to go. The anticipated sale price is $1,000 to $2,000. They usually lowball that, so I would come basically armed with at least $5,000 or $6,000 is my maximum bid to get this, but who knows? So I'm doing this for two reasons. A, it's a cool auction catalog. You can download the entire PDF, and you will have such a great time just looking at what are mostly tchotchkes, but also like pieces of memorabilia, things that how cool must it be to have given Carrie Fisher something that you made, like when you saw her in an autograph line at some con 3 or 4 years ago, and found out that not only did she keep it, but it was on a shelf in her house. And so as I'm looking at these things, oh, that person must be so pleased with that. Also, but if you're some of these auction items are non-safe for work because Carrie Fisher, she was very amused by novelty tourist souvenirs involving male genitalia. So there are a few things of that nature that you can order. But it's such a fun PDF to download, put in your iPad, and play with. And so if you like this, if you enjoyed this PDF, if you want to repay me, don't bid on any of the sofas because I'm so at the auction is in a couple of weeks. I think it's like the second week in October.
Where's the auction?
I'm not. It is. I think it is in L.A. I'd have to. I'm sorry. I believe it's in L.A., but I don't know.
Right.
But that, and again, it would be by far the most expensive piece of furniture I have ever purchased. Between the purchase price, assuming that the $200 goes up to like $1,000 or $1,500 for what is legitimately just an old sofa that you would pay $50 for in a yard sale.
But a conversation piece every time someone comes over, like that was Carrie Fisher.
Nobody would turn down an invitation to my Tonya Awards party if I said that. By the way, I did 3 weeks ago. It arrived. Princess Leia's sectional sofa. You can fight. Plus, remember there was that documentary on HBO, so you can actually HBO a few months ago. So you can actually see here's where it was, and here's who actually was sitting there. So, like I said, I'm spending ever since I downloaded the catalog a few days ago. Again, I have been in a horrible Lovecraftian abyss of talking myself into bidding and then talking myself out of bidding because, again, $1,500 probably for the sofa plus what must be $600 or $700 to have it shipped for, again, a ratty old sofa. But
worth every penny. I think I'm afraid that Andy, you and I are going to have to. We're going to be bidding against each other. I'm sorry. We'll choose one sofa a piece.
Okay.
There you go. Okay, yeah, we'll talk.
This is a good place to mention my Kickstarter that is going to be nominally to produce some sort of revolutionary iPod tether strap, but I'm just trying to raise money to again buy one of Carrie Fisher's sofa. I'm going to state that to begin with. I'll say, and the $500 reward level is that you can come to my house, you can sit on her sofa.
There you go.
Picture taken.
That's perfect.
I want her sofa. That's all I want. I just don't know. I just want her sofa. I'm sorry.
Jim, what do you got for us?
Well, now that we're done with Andy's therapy session.
Oh, we're not done. You guys are done. My therapy session continues until the hammer goes down on this.
So mine is always very simple, and I know that the guys are sitting back there waiting to type in the band that I'm going to recommend because Alex, since you haven't been on, I always recommend a band. So this week's band is called Fozzy, Fozzy, and they have a new song called Judas that is a great song. Now, as the listeners of the show know, I kind of like a hard rock type sound, but it's got to have a great beat. It's got to have a really good chorus, and that's what this song has.
You are innocence personified.
I don't think it's right.
And I will drag you down and sell you out. Run away. I am cold like December snow. I have carved out this soul made of stone.
And now there are scary clowns dancing in the background. That is a good sign.
Now, okay, so that's good. It's good. Now, Jim, I have a question. Have you? My daughter, my 8-year-old daughter, is actually into hard rock. So I don't know exactly. She started because she read this book about, it's something like, women that kick butt or something like that we got her, and one of them was Joan Jett. So she started listening to Joan Jett. Then she started to go into all, like, she just went down that path. So she's a bit of a hard rocker. Have you seen Frogleap Studios? Have you seen any of the stuff that they do?
No.
Can you guys pull up? You just have to show this just for a second. The Toto Africa.
Yeah.
This is so these guys cover generally not hard rock, but in a hard rock way. And it's kind of a thing on YouTube. And I'm just curious what your expert opinion about this, because this is, my daughter is obsessed with, not obsessed, but really into this. So it starts off. There we go.
Oh, nice.
Tonight, but she hears only whispers of some quiet conversation. She's coming in 12:35. The moonlight wings.
It's actually so good that I have a hard time listening to the old one now, which was usually one of my favorite songs. And now I'm like, I listen to this one, and my kids will just crank this up until my wife yells. Yeah, she covers. Someone was talking about it in the chat room. She covers Adele, "Hello." She covers, he covers, and there's like a lot of. This is what he does. Like, he just covers it.
That's awesome.
Anyway.
Yeah, I love it.
Anyway, so it's the same. It's a really interesting model from a media perspective. So anyway, so going back to, do you have backstory on the band that you?
No, a lot of these bands I just find. I mean, some of them that I've recommended, I've listened to for years, and I recommend those. Fozzy's been around for a long, long time, and it's one of the ones that I never thought to recommend. But then they just put out that new song Judas, and I thought it was such a great song. And then when I get the email to come on the show, I think, oh, who have I been listening to a lot lately that I really love? And then, Fozzy was the first one to come up. So, that's how it happens. I hear a song and I think, wow, it's been a long time since I've listened to this, and I jot a note. And then when I come on MacBreak, that's. Now,
do you have a list anywhere? Do you do any kind of playlists or any kind of? Because I usually am building out my workout tape, which is my workout Spotify list or whatever, and I'm always trying to add new things. Is there anywhere I can find your suggestions?
So on Apple Music, I'm on as Jay Dalrymple on Apple Music. So I have a playlist on there, and I think it's called Jim's Walk.
Okay, very good.
I like to listen. There's probably a dozen songs on there. So I like to listen to songs. And actually, I added that Fozzy song to that playlist like a week ago. So I like to listen to songs that are just like that are kind of upbeat. That when you walk, you don't want something that's going to slow you down. You want something that's going to keep the pace up. So that Jim's Walk playlist are some of my favorite songs to put in my AirPods and just go. And
when my workout, I mostly want to be mad. That's usually my rule. It needs to be upbeat, but it needs to make me mad. Because I'm going to be mad at my workout. Very good.
Does Apple Watch give you credit for heart rate increase when you're just pissed off because you can't get this shelving installed correctly?
Yeah, no, I do not listen to heavy metal when I'm doing shelving because I'm already mad. Like I don't need to be made mad to do it. I looked at the IKEA, their little AR app that they put in, which is cute. You can put a chair in there, and I was like, so for all that money that you spent on that AR app, I could have had video instructions on how to make that chair, which would be much more valuable to me than seeing if it fit or not. I just want to know why I'm ending up with 3 extra screws. So anyway.
Yeah, I'm thinking that the Apple Watch needs like an emotion ring. It could have a different color depending on whether you were happy or sad, but if you've had intense emotions for a certain number of time, your ring will fill.
Okay, this is a serious recommendation. So something I really, really want for people. The Apple Watch for people who work out of their whose main job is inside their home, whether it means that they are the head of the domestic affairs of the house or they're self-employed. I need like a progress ring or a badge award says you left the house every day this week. Here's your award. Like you're maintaining.
You left the house. And you got out of your pajamas.
I know. I was about to say, and you wore jeans. Good job.
Well, I'll take it. One of the things I use my fitness tracker for, because sometimes I've got a big project that's due, and it's I just get really, really focused, and then it occurs to me to I'm going to go to Google Fit and I'm going to see what the step counts are like. It's okay, so that verifies that I have literally not left the house in 3 days. Yeah, I don't like to let that happen.
Am I the only one that gets upset if my watch dies and I feel like I took a long walk and I'm like I didn't even get any credit for that? I mean, it was just I'm just sad, frustrated.
Well, as the Lord giveth, the Lord taketh. That happens to me. But I also have on my Google Fit on my phone, it keeps track of here's your record. It's your record is that you ran for 11 miles on this date. I said, I never ran more than again. I was about to say I will run for a plane, but there is almost always a cutoff saying if it's more than 10 gates away, it's I got my iPad, I got comic books I haven't read. I'll just wait to take the next flight. I'm glad it's lying on my behalf. So every time it cheats me out of steps, I'm it also told me that once I biked 48 miles. Okay, there is a car involved in that, I think.
So I don't actually have a real pic, but I do have a rant that I posted. I don't post many rants anymore, but I may post more because if you go up to LinkedIn, it's called Ending the Conference Call Insanity. If anybody who's listening who is on a lot of conference calls, I'm on 4 to 5 a day. It is my 2 cents on that. I'm not going to spend much time talking about it other than you can look at it and it's my public service announcement for how to have us not make fun of you after the call. So anyway, Jim, where can people find you?
They can find me on Twitter at jdalrymple and on the web at loopinsight.com.
Great. Andy, where can people find you?
Spell my last name to get at my blog and also my Instagram and my Twitter. I'm also going to be on NPR in Boston, WGBH 89.7 on Friday afternoon around noon, talking mostly about the iPhone X and the iPhone 8.
Outstanding. Tonya, where can people find you?
I'm at Twitter at Tonya Angst. If you want to read my very occasional articles that I write in Tidbits, or just check out what the Tidbits crew is at, that's tidbits.com. I will be at the Mac Tech Conference in Los Angeles in November, so anyone coming there, definitely we can hang out.
Awesome. This is Alex Lindsay sitting in for Leo. Leo is he back next week? Yeah, he is back next week, so that's going to be wondrous. Anyway, but For now, off you go, because break time is over. Hey, everybody. I should start looking forward. Hey, everybody. This is Alex Lindsay. I almost forgot my last name. It's just... Hey, everybody. This is Alex Lindsay sitting in for Leo on... Hey, everybody. This is Alex from somewhere. I don't know why I said from. Now I'm laughing. All right. Hey, everybody. This is Alex Lindsay sitting in for Leo, and I'm here with somebody, who I will talk about later, and then we're talking about the Apple Watch. We're talking about Apple's new releases: the Apple Watch, the Apple TV, and the iPhone 8, right here on MacBreak Weekly. I don't need to say that again because I already said that. This is gonna make a great outtake here.